Do 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 do. Hello, YouTube. We are back. Our internet died, and it killed our stream, which was of an impressive length. Here we go. So this is part 2. Stream died. Stream died. Let's still, why not pop out or do our chat and all that. So we have about another half hour. It's not really much. Whoa, what the? Overtime link is shared. Just to be cool about it. So there we go. There we go. There we go. And do 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 do. So we're gonna go like bada bada boom. Get rid of that. And we're gonna pull up a image. Where were we? So, okay, we're back in business-ish. Wait, just load up the monitor again. So we're talking about the difference between the general shape of an abstract or a concrete card.
Yeah.
Right? And
Technically, you can always capture everything in a concrete card.
Fine.
If you're willing to make it infinite.
I'm not willing to do that.
But you know what I mean. Like, you can skip out all of the abstractions if you include them in your
Yeah,
in
so
your
you're
concrete.
just gonna have to keep
repeating.
redoing things over
Yeah,
and over again.
Exactly. That's
Fine.
that's what the abstraction thing gives you. It's like it captures those patterns and isolates them out.
Right. And so in this case the abstraction doesn't really give you an advantage in code per se. It's just giving you remember how, like we were saying, that having a class can be like the ideal coming down into the concrete. So remember your JavaScript type space or whatever it's called. TypeScript gives you the option of imposing that order of the abstract down onto the concrete.
Yeah.
Right?
And at the same time makes it optional by the fact that it extrapolates it.
And that's the way that I see the difference here between the bottom row, which is concrete row, and the middle row, which is the abstract row. In the abstract row, you are seeing a card is basically a label with properties, right? So a card, so the types of things that you end up having in your system, one type of thing is being described by this card. It's a type of thing, right? Anytime you have a type or something,
It's a pattern. A type is
Yeah.
literally a type. A type is just referring to some kind of pattern that happens in the concrete that you can identify with a label.
right?
And every time you're saying that label, you're referring to that pattern again. So you don't have to constantly recreate the pattern over and over and over
Yeah.
and over again every time you create it. Every time you see it, you're just referring right back to it to say, oh, we're just utilizing this pattern.
Exactly.
So that's what a type does for you from the concrete to the abstract.
And so in terms of what a card looks like, that card will have so every card has a title space at the top.
That's
and
the label. Yeah.
The label, and it has a content space at the bottom. And so at the top in the label space, you will have the name of the component, of the environment,
Mhm.
whatever it is.
Whatever the whatever it is you're trying to capture with a card. A card is a representation, right? It's a symbol behind something, right?
Yeah.
It's a way to represent something else.
Yeah.
So a card that is its own lexeme, language, if you will,
Right.
to put into a grammar.
And so you have this label, but so in the abstract, this label is relating to other labels. And that's all that this space is. So you have a label and properties. The properties of the label are basically pointing to other labels that exist as a part of that said label.
Yeah.
There's said to be that it's required. Like a car has wheels, a car has an engine, right? So you have a car card with maybe engine, wheels, gas, all this kind of
It's
stuff.
a good time to probably introduce where fiat comes into play. When we're doing such things, you're essentially creating these things by fiat. You're saying, this is this symbol representing those symbols, representing those symbols. So you create this whole
Right.
network of labels and labels, pointing to labels to pointing to labels.
Right.
And you're just throwing it out there via fiat saying, this exists.
Yep.
If this exists,
Then things are gonna work.
you can extrapolate this, that, the other thing. But the point being, of course, is that you're saying all of that to exist via fiat. So it's those symbols being thrown into this ether, so to speak, only really gain their value from the fact that they may or may not have an isomorphism with something else in reality, which this might be actually
Right.
working in parallel with. And really, that's the value of all software, for example, in that it has some kind of isomorphism with a real life activity. It's also the same thing with any belief system.
Yep.
You basically don't really get any value out of believing something unless it has some kind of effect on other activities in your life.
Right.
So, and the more these things match, the more isomorphism you have, the more things are lined up, the more things integrate,
Right.
work together,
Right.
and so on and so forth.
And so you never want to idolize the structure itself that you're building.
Mm.
So this web of interrelations of labels and properties.
No, to do so would to be misunderstand its utility entirely.
Right.
Its utility is to as a tool of navigation rather than a reality unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, it's a tool. It's not reality. What reality is actually quite irrelevant.
Correct.
All we need to know about reality is which tools are available to us and which ones are not tools, actually. Right? The entire question outside of this spectrum is pretty much irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, there's no answer that's going to come up here that's going to actually change anything regarding life or living it specifically. It's the idea of purpose, the idea of schemes, plans. All of that is outside the actual functional model of propagation and function and existence.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty much why there's no point in questioning it.
True story.
Take it if you want, leave it if you want, I don't care.
Yeah. So, to
I
me,
ain't gonna believe 4 people.
to me, the abstract row, the middle row here, seems to me fairly simple to represent on a card. You have the title space, and you just give it the title of that thing, and then a list of properties. The properties are pointing to other cards whose label is that property,
Yeah.
and that's all it is. So you have
And
a
there's a bottoming
structure.
out. There's certain atoms in this that are, would be considered quote unquote self-explanatory without a card. Namely, because what will happen is that once you start to get to the lowest constituents, the atoms of the system, they will need representation in term of a lower level system that isn't part of the schema. And so those elements
Right.
of the
So
schema.
are you talking about media, basically?
Yeah, those elements of the schema need to be taken as at atomic axiom.
Cool.
Uh,
Cool. Yep. Cool stuff. Cool stuff, dude.
oh God.
So
So what do we do there? What's happening?
So we've got our abstract, which is basically just relation to other abstract things. Very seems easy to represent in cards. This is the abstract space of whatever you're trying to describe. You can just give everything a label, each type of thing a label. That's if you're in the pragmatic triad.
That's basically the same discussion as having the photons and then saying this is an object, these are lines, these are. Do you remember when at the beginning we were talking about how photons become like a picture that's differentiated?
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Right. So in a devotional context, or the concrete triad context, what we're laying out is objects that exist within your concrete perception that you care about. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just an abstract. These are the things that make up your life, your commitments, right?
Mm-hmm.
The things that you're aware of, that you care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's be right back. Oh no.
There's no
Where
context
were we?
for that one.
Don't do that.
There's no context for any of that. That's hilarious. Alright, so you were saying about we're actually on a roll there, so
Yeah. So I'm just talking about the difference, or how these abstract cards look like, in the difference between a concrete context and a devotional context and a pragmatic context, right?
Yep.
Concrete or abstract context.
well, yeah, the timeless versus the moment by moment.
So like when you're using this system to articulate your world, you are you are pointing towards concrete objects that you actually care about, which you know about, which you've experienced, and these are your narratives that you know about. That say you're building a car, you're building up a classic car or something. That is one of these commitment objects. It's an object to you because it's not just how to build a car in general. This is the car that you are building, right? And you think about it, and you do work on it here and there, kind of thing.
Especially if you're not mass producing these parts, you got to carve them all out by hand or something.
Right. Yeah.
Then it becomes an entirely unique object
Yeah.
without a parallel outside in this universe.
And so if you're trying to describe in the abstract your commitment to that car, it's actually going to involve a whole bunch of other commitments. For example, the fender, the engine, like these things have to be rebuilt, have to be fabricated. Right? So within your abstract view of the cosmos,
Sorry.
you are using commitment cards to actually iterate the different things that you are going to take care of and their properties. Properties being the things that, again, and reflect back to the thing itself. So it's just a web of things. The actual execution type card is going to be these like mini tasks that have to be done, and then you're going to put them into the meta stack of tasks that we've talked about before.
Yeah, it would look like a schedule actually. So
Right, the
so-
meta schedule.
Yeah, and why a meta schedule rather than just a schedule? It's basically each task that's lined up for, like, it's, you can think of it as a list, but it isn't one dimensional, in a sense that as soon as you do any kind of task, it affects what the next task is based on its feedback into the entire system.
Right.
And so even though the next task may have been something, right, to follow, the very activity of doing this current task changed the context of everything, and now placed a
Right.
completely different unrelated task perhaps into that
And-
into the schedule. And so now your expectation is a little bit different. So you're not literally picking from a single list and keeping to it.
Yeah.
That list has to be very,
It's-
very dynamic.
At every point, it's changing potentially.
It's each task has a potential to change that list, and so it's a very self manipulative sort of a list, and hence
So yeah,
the,
like-
the moniker
An
meta.
easy example, back to the car, like let's say you're building the engine and you happen to need a certain type of O-ring, right? So put the O-ring on, that's part of your task, right? And then proceed to do this. That put the O-ring on. Well, you don't have that O-ring. So now you have to diverge into a whole other branch of execution to
To
actually go
obtain
to
it.
the store and get it,
Yeah.
right? So you can't just put the O-ring on. You don't have it yet. This is why it's a meta schedule.
Right. So
Once you have the O-ring, it says what to do next, right?
So even having a task on that schedule could potentially divert what task you're on. So even if one of your tasks happen to be adding another task onto the schedule, it could potentially change what current task you're doing based on that task to begin with. So like the whole thing could change at a moment's notice into an entirely different schedule altogether, and
Mhm.
hence meta is more of an appropriate thing, because
Yep.
you can never know what it is up until the point that it's happening.
Right. And this is kind of so moving over to the
So
pragmatic.
just to top this off, this is not the kind of schedule you can plan for. This isn't it.
Right.
This isn't a planning schedule.
Except for the fact that
That
over
it'll
here,
happen.
when we move into pragmatic, we have a protocol tree now, which is looking very similar, and it's saying if you have this, then do it, and if you have that, then do it.
So this
right?
is the counterpart to that, to keep that into a control. So what you can't do is you can't predict too much. What you can't do is predict the future too much. But what you can do is react to every single situation that comes up.
Right, and through heuristics.
Exactly.
Right, the event being, so what I like for the I don't have an O-ring, right? Like that's my
So-
next
but
step.
there's a solution to it. Yeah.
I don't have an O-ring, so that triggers off a new event,
Mhm.
right? But and you can have this protocol,
And then it's
right?
scheduled into to happen
You
at
can
this
have
point and that point.
a
and this point.
heuristic running that says, if or in the event that I am ever missing a part while I'm doing this,
Yeah.
go get the part.
Right.
Right? So you go off and do another thing.
And in fact, that's exactly what happens, right? And so,
Right, and this is the membrane thing too, like where a membrane is shielded by heuristics,
Mhm.
right? To sustain something, you have all these ifs and if and if and if and if. If all the bad things happen, then do something good to make it
yeah,
not bad.
really a protocol is just no more nor less than a plan of contingencies.
Yeah,
To,
it's-
sus- to account for all the situations as to how to sustain this,
Yeah.
whatever it is.
to describe the constraints, basically. To
Right,
take care of them.
And the constraints are an abstract way to put a membrane around something, which basically gives us the agency that we are talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so that's abstract and concrete. And then there's the interesting part when we move over to the academic side of it. Because then, and this is in my kind of perception, and I may be bleeding this in with perceptive as well, but remember we were talking about the virtual reality overlay. This is what we're trying to do with the cards.
This is different. Those two are basically two kinds of overlay.
So
One talks about the pieces, the Lego pieces. One talks about the objects made out of them.
right, and these are all, for all intents and purposes, could be just timeless things that nobody knows what they even mean at all. And when you have a program running, and linked in as a virtual overlay, you get something like
You get a parallel universe.
you get all these different universes, and you're stepping and moving and flowing in and through and out of them, and the description and the guardian on the layer of that universe to universe is this agent, the carrier agent, or
Yeah.
whatever program.
Actually, two agents are involved in every barrier.
There you go. Like, that's fine. That's how I figured.
Well, like you and me talking, for
yeah,
example.
because
the barrier between me and you is caused by both of us. Right?
because there's a relationship between objects,
Yeah.
and any object can have so many different relations, and you don't want to just constrain that down to one thing.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a two-way street every time. This is why sustenance and maintenance are actually in the middle between shelter and society, right?
Yeah.
The activity is actually both ways, and this is why you get an eye picture at the same time. Like, you get the extremities, and the middle sort of circles it around itself.
Yep.
The shape of the eye is entirely incidental, right, to the kind of relationships we're describing. We're just looking at a linear progression that then talks back to itself, and the way it talks back to itself creates a figure of an eye. If you're to draw the arrows a certain way.
Oh. Thank
All
you very
right, I
much.
think we need to end it here.
Do we?
Yeah, it's 27. 8.
Don't we still have overtime?
This is our overtime.
No, I mean like.
No. Now we gotta go.
Okay, one final point.
Yep.
One final point, please. So. Probably won't find
You're not on camera, by the way.
what I'm looking for. Let's find this one. Okay, so we don't need, actually, no, we don't really need that. This could represent the log, though, anyways. So this, I want to describe tabletop protocol very quickly. So when you are laying out index cards, you need a space to do it. This is the basic medium, right? So we have tabletop protocol.
Obviously.
It doesn't have to be a table. It can be a
It's
floor.
a surface. It's the surface protocol.
Right?
So it's like
Surface.
it's like calling that a desktop on the computer screen.
Tabletop is neat though. Yeah, you can actually
Boom.
read
Card.
it.
Now card protocol has an effect on the tabletop protocol.
So like green, you know the schema. This being this is actually concept right now.
Oh jeez.
Yeah. So this when we're talking about carriers and different interactions between realities and that, this is like an agent standing up on the tabletop, taking and going of cards coming and going.
What's
And
interesting about this particular agent is that it refers right back to the tabletop it's standing on.
that's, yeah.
So now this layer is captured by this layer. It's as simple as that, really.
This is the virtual overlay.
This is the whole embedding part too.
Now
This
how
is-
does that
now
embed?
you embedded this table with this word.
Oh, because this is fundamental, actually. This card is on the mimetic/fundamental side of things.
Sure. Yeah, but it also is an abstraction sitting on top of the mimetic part here.
Could
right?
be seen as, but the
And
fact
now
that it's
referring
green,
back.
the fact that it's green means we're referring to the academic triad.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it simpler than that. Colors
And-
were
right.
never explained really.
But you're right that you could see this as the same thing reflected in a protocol or a constraint.
Yeah, but see, as soon as you take this card though, put it on a tabletop, which is a tabletop.
Yeah, no, you're
and,
right.
and
This
then,
is
and then
the
list
basic.
and then list put down cards on the tabletop inside this card.
This is the
you've now
basic-
you've now captured the actual
Yes.
happening inside the abstract. So this is the embedding that we were
the
discussing in the
basic
computing.
embedding. This is a visual of the basic embedding that happens.
Yeah,
How do you like
which is
that?
by the way, by the way, there's so many paintings by Escher, by other artists talking about like if you ever see the picture "I am not a pipe," same fucking thing.
I'm not a pipe.
Yeah, literally a picture of a pipe, and written under it, "I am not a pipe."
That makes sense.
It's the same concept. It's like putting a card about a tabletop on the tabletop.
Okay, like a self-comment, right? But this is a very specific self-referential comment
Right.
in that it's embedded in this.
They're all
this
specific.
Whole,
We're just
schema.
talking about the process itself.
This whole schema, which is isomorphic with the neural OS and
I'm just
the
saying.
perception.
I'm just saying that lots of artists have captured this idea.
This is isomorphic with perception mechanics. We are asserting that, and you can find out.
Yep. Basically, on a tabletop. We're putting a card that says "I'm a tabletop," and here should be written, "Put cards on the tabletop."
Well, see, there's a whole bunch of protocols, and I could start throwing them
Well,
out
this is,
there.
but this is like the basic self-reference that you start with, and then everything else is just an expression of the same basic core concept, and then you got a fractal going.
Yeah, man.
That's
Yeah.
it.
And like you were saying, different carriers, different realities. This is one tabletop agent. There's also a Portal Mountain agent, potentially, in one's head, which is taking care of this, teaching and education of this structure to be able to see the isomorphisms between what's happening,
And so on and so forth.
in order to communicate with others in a isomorphic manner.
Yeah, that's the gist.
Yeah, butts. So we'll get you home on time. This was, I would say, extreme success, and I love that we actually ended off with this particular footage here.
Mhm. No, it's nice.
Oh man, oh man, oh man.
We've got some advertising going on.
Just oh wait, no. You know, it's got
And this is to represent real stressed out life.
It's got to look more natural.
Yeah. And the real stresses of life, right? All in one go.
Here we go. Now we gotta sit up and look proud. The money shot.
Into the distance. Gross. By the way.
You know what it is.